No one else? No. Okay, moving on to the agenda. So item number 3, performance management. And it's the 2022-23 Environment Regeneration Revenue Budget as at the 28th of February 2023. Matt.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, this is the regular monitor report members will see every cycle. I'm pleased to report that while there has been a slight reduction, the committee continues to report a significant underspend of £197,000. The movement being largely in central repairs for this period. Clearly the timing is a bit funny because we're beyond the year end and we're reporting back in February. Just maybe to update members, I'm not aware of any significant movements at this stage, so I would anticipate that projection is going to be fairly close by the end of the year. We're there or thereabouts. The main details are included in section 3.2 and also in the appendices. I wouldn't propose to go through them, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Don't see any in the chat. Okay, agree recommendation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item number 3. It's on the late reports. It's the Environment Regeneration Capital Programme Progress Report for 2023 to 2026. Ed, you want to start as well?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I know it's normal for a number of officers to contribute to this one because there's so many items on it. I don't plan to go through any detail. Usually I would normally provide an update if anything had changed significantly from the position noted in the report, but all the reports are current. So I'm really just happy to answer any specific questions on any individual projects.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, sorry. Gail, one section of German, we can just open up the question.
Thank you, Convener. I'm in a similar position. I just wanted to update that Sutherland's Place panel considered the West Blackwell Street project on Tuesday. Generally supportive of the project due to the scale of funding bit that we are requesting. It has further processes to follow, and they'll keep us aware of that, of the progress of that.
Okay, thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. A couple of points. One's just for Mr. Jimson to give a wee ticking off. Paragraph 3.33, town development centre place base funding. He did give me an assurance that we would get more detail in future reports, and he'll provide that information. So I'll accept his apologies. He doesn't need to make it, and I'm sure it'll be there in the next report. But the more substantive items to do with the City Deal projects, and in particular concern around Inverkip. I mean, Inverkip obviously, along with the Ocean Terminal, are the sort of first 2 projects, and we're now seeing that Inch Green, which was a sort of a horizon project, I suppose, when we were working on Ocean Terminal and Inverkip, has actually now overtaken Inverkip in terms of the fact that work has actually started on site in terms of this, and Inverkip, we're obviously still waiting to finalise the final business case and get on site with these works. So I'm looking for an update on where we are with Inverkip and assurance that we're not going to see any sort of further major delays on this project.
Sure.
For you, Convener. First of all, apologies to Mr. McCabe for our tardiness in respect to town and village centres, and there will be, I assure him that there will be an update at the next meeting. With regards to Inverkip, Convener, officers are just not quite there yet in respect of the outline business case or indeed the final business case. Contractors have been working on revised costs and design in respect of the project. We'd hoped to have them by the end of last month. We're working towards that. There is slippage on the project. Officers apologise for that slippage on the project, and we're doing everything within our power to ensure that further slippage does not occur on the project, and we hope to bring a report to the next meeting of the committee with the appropriate detail on the outline business case.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question on the 3.15. So the Markfield Road, George Road Junction, it just said the service will programme the quantification of postings in the new financial year. So I'm just seeking assurance that that was written last financial year, because we're now in May and I'm just concerned with another problems.
No.
Through you, yes, councillor, it will be programmed for this summer. Okay. So we are looking at programming of that in relation to the best time to do that consultation exercise in relation to school holidays, etc. But as soon as we have that brought down, we'll make sure that we're aware of that. Okay, great, thanks.
Tim?
Yeah. Thank you, Gail. It's just on your verbal update on West Blackhall Street. In one way, it was beneficial that it's such plans are still at the table, but in another, it's deeply disappointing that we're stretching this project along a bit again. And it's just to know if we get any definitive timelines from Sustrans, because I think we really need to this again is one of these legacy projects that we thought we were going to start previous to the election time, the last time, and it seems to be running on and running on. From the time we agreed to approach Sustrans, it seems that that has been the major blockage point for this project. So really, I think it's time really to come to a conclusion with Sustrans, whether or not they're going to be at the table, whether or not they're going to bring their considerable funding to the table. But really, we can't keep on waiting and waiting and waiting for Sustrans to decide whether or not they are actually going to contribute. So have we got a definitive time of when we're going to know Sustrans is either in or out, and how much they're actually going to contribute, if anything?
Through you, convener, thank you, councillor. The update I've received this week from Sustrans advises because of the size of the grant we're requesting, it needs to go through their Finance and Performance Committee, and it requires Transport Scotland approval. I have gone back and asked, could you please give us dates for that so that we have that drop-down date, and as soon as I get that, I will advise members. We have been through now the panel, so that is a positive step because we have now been through the panel, which is what we've been waiting for approval for consideration by officers. So we would hopefully, I would hope that we get that this week and look at those dates so that we're able to share that. And then we do know that those are the final approval steps. And it is because of, normally we wouldn't need to go through those steps, but because of the scale of funding award that we've requested, that's why it needs to go through those steps.
Yeah, and I can understand that, Gail, and thank yourself and all the officers' commitment to this and time and effort spent to this. From an elected member's point of view, it is deeply frustrating, but because what we don't know is what has changed from our initial interaction with Sustrans. You know, that they've always known, we have not really, unless I've got this wrong, we have always asked for a substantial amount of Sustrans. The initial offers of some Sustrans was, if you do this and you make these changes and you make it more cycle friendly, you'll get this money. We did all that, complied with everything that Sustrans asked for, and it now seems as if we've got to go through further hoops. So I take your point on board with regard to, well, this is what we've got to be done. But in all honesty, there's got to be a closure from the Sustrans point of view at some point in time. So I'll await further information. I'm sure not only Ward 4 members, I'm sure every member thinks it's one of the projects we're wanting to see come to completion, or at least start. Bearing in mind we're going to be looking at the Levelling Up Fund, but it looks as if it's going to be starting and maybe we're overtaking this by the time the West Blackhall Street project gets on the go.
So Gail, will you elect the members be aware of any developments for that over the next week or two? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Thanks, Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Just more of a comment. 5 on the Immigrant project, this there's an administration that we're seeing getting in this project. You know, the local buildings particularly as well, you know, get frustrated that we're having a delay in it, and just ask the officers do whatever they can to minimise the long this aspect.
Okay, noted. Thanks. John?
Thank you, convener. I would two questions, one is 3.5 and the other in 3.14. The 3.5, I noticed there that officers are continuing to work on the design of the improvements on the N75 cycle route. The one I'm interested in is the Cove Road and Target Street Junction, where, if memory serves me correct, there was an issue there regarding a small triangle of land, and it was to do with the land ownership. Has that been resolved? And if we then move on to 3.14, which was the Inverclyde traffic study, it just says here that the consultant is continuing to work with this high-level study. Now, is there a closing date for that? And after that closing date has been reached, will a committee paper be produced for councillors?
Thanks, John. Gail, do you want to tell Cove Road and the traffic study closing date?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Thank you, Councillor. In relation to this land, I'll have to take advice from the team and come back to you on that. I'm not aware of the detail of where the ownership and land purchases on that. But in relation to the Inverclyde traffic survey, surveys have commenced. So once the surveys are complete, that will be assessed. There will be a number of workshops with the team to look at what that's telling us, and then a report will come to committee for information and for consideration by members.
That's finished, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, John, thank you. Wisdom.
I'm fine.
You okay? Plus.
Thank you. Again, thanks, Michael. I've got a couple of questions. What we'll do is, once on the cycling, walking, safer streets group of paragraphs, I'll leave that to the end. The first question I'd like to ask is relating to Dunrod Road and the subsidence that's happened has obviously led to the closure of the road for a substantial period of time. I note in the paragraph 3.19 that the site investigation has now been completed. Last time the update said it was going to be a secondary investigation, so glad that's been completed, and an external consultant is now preparing design solutions. Can you advise, or through your community officers, advise when they anticipate that the external consultant will be able to present these options both to officers and then subsequently to a meeting of this committee?
Okay, sure, what's on?
The convener to revise that we hope for the solution by September, which will bring the board members and due course. As I've explained to the committee on a number of occasions, it's not a simple solution. It may involve us creating diversion routes off of the current line of the road. And with that, there are significant cost implications associated with it. So we will bring something, we hope to bring something, we hope to have a solution by September and thereafter bring it before the committee.
Just a wee follow up on that. I think, so thanks for that. I think September is obviously it's 4 months away, but I can anticipate that for getting to the committee, that's going to be just an effect of the cycles we're in. I'm just wondering, when it's been brought to committee, officers identified this would be a substantial cost element to it. At that point in time, do officers anticipate that they will be able to identify a funding route for undertaking these works? Again, we're getting a report 4 months from now, that's 4 months with the road is being closed. So obviously we want to try and see if there's a way of getting to a solution to this issue.
Sure.
So you can be very much depends on the scale of the fund, councillor. Clearly, if the cost can be contained within this committee, then that's what's potentially available to us. But if it's as suspected, the cost will be out with the remit of this committee, then a report will be presented to this committee and then further remitted to policy and resources for consideration.
Thank you for that. I understand the issues involved in this, and hopefully we can get to a conclusion as quickly as possible. Just on the cycle walking safer streets, obviously looking at this now, you can see this contains quite a large proportion of the report, maybe about half a page in total. I'm conscious of the fact is that there's some work's been undertaken in Greenock on Port Glasgow Road, and this doesn't seem to be captured within the report here. I'm just wondering if officers can advise on that. Is that something missed out? Because I looked at previous reports and I can't seem to see it anywhere within the ramp or within these projects listed here.
Yeah. Well,
Through your convener, councillor, I'll ask the team to do a bit of an update on that and come back to you direct.
Thank you. I think, and just on that subject, I've received an email via the MP staff, which has a number of other projects on it, which is circulated to the members of the committee before the meeting. I think there's a couple of ones that just to bring to attention is there's mentions here in Inverclyde Green Connections, places for everyone. One project runs from Lake up to Greentown Centre, the other runs from over to Greentown Centre. These are also not mentioned in the council report, so we to get them covered. My understanding is that options for appraisal stages started in January and detailed designs have been consulted on during summer 2023. So the query, in a similar vein to my previous queries at this committee, is when will us as committee members be able to see sight of these options appraisals and be able to be consulted as part of these projects?
You convener, Councillor Cullen has highlighted a number of concerns to officers over the last 24 hours or so. We will take these comments on board and a comprehensive back to the next available meeting of the committee.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that. I think it's important that I do that because there's, as you can see, there's a lot of projects here, which is good. But I think it's important we do have oversight on these matters before they progress much further. Thank you.
Okay.
Another point of order, one of the press is trying to get access to the meeting and they're failing to access. So it's just to ensure we've got no blockage or no technical issue from our side to ensure the meeting's open to the public.
Thank you.
So to you can so I think Alan's indicated that there are problems with the streaming at the moment. I believe he's trying to resolve, but we're currently recording it, and then obviously the recording will be updated. Next time.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Rollins.
Thank you. Just to expand further on what Councillor McCabe was asking about the second deal at Inverclyde. It says here in the report that there's a projected increase in outline project costs and further work is required in relation to timelines and costs. Are the costs not going to be a lot less for traffic lights than what they would have been to put a roundabout in here?
Sure. Through you can you'd have thought so, Councillor, but unfortunately with inflation and the design of the scheme, it's proving that costs are up. I mentioned in my other comments that we're waiting on a detailed design coming back from the contractor, a detailed costing design coming back from the contractor, which will give us comfort one way or another.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Fun.
Just do we still need the doors opened just for, because it's really distracting. I'm struggling to hear at some points when there's obviously lots of work going on.
That's
Okay,
good.
now just,
Okay with that? Close the doors, yeah?
I don't know where we are with COVID guidelines, but I don't. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so can we do recommendations and item 3? Okay, item number 4 is the Environment Regeneration Committee. Environment Regeneration Committee elaborate on improvement plans 2026 to 2026. Yep.
Earlier this year, the Policy and Resources Committee approved the development of a committee delivery and improvement plan to replace the corporate director improvement plan. The plan report today reflects the scope of activities carried out by the director within the remit of the committee and cascades from the council plan. Highlights regular reporting, convener on the basis that we've had an all-member meeting, albeit very succinct, on this matter and have no questions.
I enjoyed the 10-minute briefing that we had. It's quite informative.
Thanks, Kimira. I'm really sorry I missed the faster than the speed of light briefing earlier on. But I'm very happy to kind of be in a position of saying I think the direction of travel that we're taking with all of this, and it's as somebody who comments on these types of plans all the time, to probably everybody's eye-rolling delight. I think this is a really good direction of travel because we are starting to focus in on what difference are we going to make. I think having that constant eye and constant attention to what, not just what are we doing, but what difference are we hoping to make by doing it is absolutely the right way to go. And round of applause all round because it's brilliant.
Okay, anyone else? No? Nothing on the chat? Can we agree? Okay, item number 5 is 4th Street parking charges petition.
In November last year, the petition submitted considered the report with respect to parking charges at 4th Street Car Park in Port Glasgow. Officers have considered the request and failed to allow free parking to be counterintuitive for the very reason that 4th Street Car Park was the founder of the initial parking policy, mainly to stimulate movement within our car parks for the benefit of businesses and the wider community. The report highlights opportunities for officers to engage with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde and the two doctor surgeries. Happy to take any questions.
Is there? Thanks, Stuart. Any questions for Stuart? Chris?
Yeah, it's not so much a question, just a comment. It's something that's what they call it. It's one of the things that I was quite in favour of bringing in these charges to the car park, just to try and ensure that we are getting a churn in the car park over the day, which didn't appear to be happening before. Officers went out and surveyed it and identified that was an issue. There was a lot of long stay car parking, which was preventing people from using the car park during the day. Because of that, I also recused myself from this consideration under the Petitions Committee. Looking at the car park since it's been in operation, it does seem to be functioning a lot better. There's a lot more access to people to come out and use the car park than there was before. Last week, I visited the car park, and again, when it was in, there was 15 spaces out of the 100 or so that were available. And while I was in that short period of time, on my bike, not in the car park, not in the car, that there was actually 4 cars came out and actually was able to use the car park, which would have been unheard of before the parking charges. And also, it's important to note that the parking charges are for people beyond 3 hours. For the majority of people in Glasgow going to the health centre, the nearby shops and pharmacy, the car park is completely free, and that gives that option now to actually use these services. So I'm in favour of the car parking charges remaining as they are. What I'd like to know from officers, get onto my question, is in relation to the discussions with the health board on the adjacent car park. Is the report talks about possibly extending the permit scheme to enable further regulation and according to the rules that the health board would wish to set up on their car park. I was just wondering if officers can confirm if any discussions have actually taken place on that.
Really, there no reason we won't do that. We want to have committee approval in first instance, because clearly if the committee were not supportive of officer recommendations, then that would have a completely different slant on any considerations going forward. So if committee are minded to support the recommendations within the report, officers will engage with NHS Greater Glasgow and the state's teams.
Okay, yeah. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I mean, I think the proposals in the report are a sensible compromise. I just was going to ask a question on the traffic regulation order. Given this as a private car park, can we expedite that process rather than go through our normal tortuous long process? Traffic regulation orders.
Convener, councillor, there is a legal process that's set out and we have to follow that procedure. You'll be aware that we have put in measures to make it slightly quicker. So if we didn't receive any objections, we wouldn't need to come to committee and we'd be able to progress a bit quicker. So unfortunately, we still need to follow the legal procedure, whether it's private or public space.
Okay, but I think it would be useful if we agree these recommendations, we engage with the HSCP, health board as soon as possible and try and move things forward.
Okay, anyone else? No? Some the recommendations? Okay, item number 6 is a proposed 20 miles per hour speed limits around schools. Yes, that goes up.
Thank you, councillor. Members may recall that a previous report was brought to committee in relation to a phased introduction of 20 mile per hour zone, and schools were identified as a key priority area for implementation of 20 mile per hour traffic regulation orders. At that time, it was proposed to implement part-time orders at all schools. But following an assessment of the different locations, it's been identified that there is a benefit for a full-time order a number of those locations. The phasing will be determined through identification of a priority list, and that will look at the highest number of vehicles and the highest routes in that locality. And we propose to set up a member briefing session to talk members through that prioritisation list, and at that point there'll be the opportunity to look at each particular location in more detail. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Okay, good.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm supportive of the report that's been tabled. My understanding is moving vehicles, the enforcement of the 20 mile can be enforced by a Waterford police officer, so it's not in our gift. So I just wonder, has Police Scotland engaged with this? Do they have an opinion about resources to implementing or to enforcing these same speed limits?
No.
Convener, yes, Councillor, we have engaged with Police Scotland, so they are aware of the proposals, the supportable proposals. However, as with all activity, they would only be able to attend when they have the capacity to do so.
Stuart, what's number?
Yeah, through you, convener. Apologies, as part of the introduction, we should have pointed out that on page 43 of your agenda, there are two spurious green circles. For those of you who are from very observant, they're spurious and back together, and we apologise to them.
That was the others.
Anyone else?
Yes. Thank you. I welcome this as a first step, hopefully in light the introduction of the 20 mile per hour speed limits. Obviously, myself and former councillor Jim McLeod, we're campaigning for this last year. It's good to see that this is starting to move ahead, and thank officers for taking this through. In my own particular ward, there's plans for around Glasgow campus, and obviously around the St Francis primary school in Bartrainie. Now, I'm also conscious of the fact is that there's also plans for a wider 20 mile per hour speed limit as part of the Sustrans proposal. So I'm just wondering, is this effectively something that might fall by the wayside of that? Which one comes first? The Sustrans proposal or this proposal around the schools?
Yeah.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, councillor. The team are doing the prioritisation exercise at the moment. So if the Sustrans project TRO is moving further ahead, it'll be absorbed within that order. However, if it's not, and it's this location is part of that prioritisation and phase in the first phase, then we'll progress with that first. So that exercise still needs to be undertaken, but the school will be covered in whatever route it's.
Thank you.
Thanks, convener. This is a question that's come from this report rather than about this report, if that's okay. The paper's kind of provoked a couple of people contacting me about the back end of Clydeview Academy, the kind of Mallard Crescent side of the world, and asking for an update on where we are. I think there has been some suggestion in the past about making that one-way system, and I'm just wondering if it's possible to get an update on what's happening with that as a notion.
Yeah, well, it isn't.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, councillor. At this time, we're not progressing with that through this process, as we're only looking at the 20 mile per hour traffic regulation orders. As part of the wider Safe Routes to School, key locations are being looked at, and that may or may not be the preferred recommendation that comes out of that process.
Okay.
We'll come back with them.
I guess so. I think probably so. Just if that's something that people are starting to kind of in volume ask about, I'm just wondering what the best route in for that type of information is.
Yep.
Sorry.
Each school will have Safe Routes to School, and that school travel plan sets out what the key sort of feeding in from parents, children, residents, school community, and that travel plan sort of sets out what are perceived as the key challenges around that school. Then that allows us to progress to be able to develop solutions to address those key challenges. So the key route into that education really is each school having that school travel plan and identifying that as one of the key challenges to active travel and safe movement around the school.
Thanks, Vera. I too welcome these proposals. I think it's the second step, Councillor Curley, because the previous first step was the town and village centres. And this is the sort of next step, and that aspiration to have the whole of Inverclyde more or less 20 mile an hour road. But I was going to ask, I suppose, in terms of the elected member briefing, given, I suppose, we've had some contention recently about elected members making objections to speed limit orders and traffic regulation orders. Are we going to have that briefing before these proposals go formally out for consultation? So potentially there's opportunity for members to maybe suggest some tweaks.
It's through you. Yes, Councillor, that's the proposal. So we're able to bring, these are the, because of the scale, there's not 222 proposed TROs here. So it's too many to do in one go. So our plan is to bring the priority list for year one to members to talk through those locations, allow questions, allow feedback, and then progress to the traffic enforcement proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Again, it's similar to that. If I look at, and again, please forgive me, because we all look at our own wards here as well. So if I look at one ward, and I look at St Mary's, and then I look at Cedars, and I look at Gown, it looks as if we go from 20 miles an hour to speed to 30 to 20. It seems what we've got is a wee bit of patchwork. So rather than actually saying, well, okay, we've got St Mary's at that, we've got a Gown at that, but Cedars in the middle. Let's look at it all. It looks as if what we've done is we've looked at, quite rightly as well, I can understand why we've looked at each school individually, but what that means is you're left with a wee bit of patchwork where you might have stretches of 20 miles and then you go into a 30 and then you go straight back into a 20 again. I'm just thinking of the motorist, and we've talked about the police as well, that there could be a wee bit of confusion there. And I know, as Chris says, and we've all agreed on that, especially in our housing schemes, our travel, where we're going, is 20 miles an hour in these areas. But it's just that if I'm looking at my own area and I'm saying that looks a wee bit patchwork between St Mary's, Cedars and our Gown, it's just whether or not we look at it in a round rather than individual schools. I know it might be too late for that now, it's probably just a comment, but it's a comment maybe you can make that as well.
I'll be a long briefing. Yeah. Okay, can I agree on the recommendations? Yeah, thank you. Okay, item number 7 is the pedestrian crossing at Lochmannock Road, and the petition received from Comerford residents. Gail.
Thank you, convener. Following consideration of the petition in relation to a new pedestrian crossing in Comerford, officers were tasked in reviewing the pedestrian crossing and the number of pedestrians crossing at various times, both over the 12-hour period and at peak time also. And this information contained within the report in table 3.11. So you can see that over 12 hours, there are more people crossing at the requested location. However, at peak time, that actually there's more people crossing at the controlled crossing. We believe that off-peak, because there's less vehicles and more crossing gaps, people tend to cross in their desired line because there's not so many vehicles that they're trying to cross between. So the service do not feel that there's justification to relocate the crossing, and but as an action are looking to the guidance and the fact that that guidance is not clear, and are going to engage with stakeholders, including Scots and Transport Scotland, to review the guidance and see if there's an opportunity to feed into that process so it becomes a clear guidance for understanding and determining where pedestrian crossings are located in the future. Happy to take questions.
Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Kavita. I think there's been a wee bit of confusion as to, I suppose, what the Petitions Committee agreed on this, albeit by a majority vote. I think we were all agreed that the case for a pedestrian or a pelican crossing hadn't been established, and it probably wasn't appropriate because of the length of that stretch of road. But the majority of us on the Petitions Committee, including my good friend Councillor Curley, felt that the concerns that were raised by the petitioners merited some action by the council, short of a pelican crossing. I did raise a number of suggestions at the meeting. I didn't suggest that the build out should be relocated. I was suggesting potentially another build out could be put in closer to where the co-op is. I also had raised the fact that the junction of Lochwinnock Road and the Bridge of Weir Road, Port Glasgow Road, is very difficult for pedestrians to cross that because it's such a wide junction, and the island in the middle, the distance between the pavements to the island is pretty far, and particularly for older people, people with disabilities, etc., it is challenging to cross that particular junction. And I know we looked at it before in terms of changing the arrangement of that junction, and there was a view not necessarily that was the best thing. I also had suggested we're going to be introducing a statutory 20-mile-an-hour zone here. There currently is a advisory 20-mile-an-hour zone. That as part of that, we could potentially look at road markings, etc., that might, I suppose, give more sort of prominence to pedestrians rather than notice. Now, I know if you do anything in Kilmacombe, and particularly on Lochwinnock Road, St James's Terrace, and you take away parking spaces, it's the end of the world, right? But I genuinely do think, and my good friend Councillor Curley, I'm sure, will support me on this, I genuinely do think, particularly at peak times, it is challenging for certain groups within our community, and I think that's reflected in the number of people who signed the petition to actually cross that. And Kilmacombe Village Centre can be a very, very busy village, and it's well used village. And I just think we could do a bit to try and change the balance between the priority given to the car and the priority given to pedestrians. And as I say, I know there's sensitivity, so I'm not content with the report as it stands. I would want a further report that looked at particular measures that we could take to make it safer for pedestrians to go about their business in the village centre.
Anyone else? No? Chris, if you're watching us on YouTube tonight, you did say, my good friend.
Right.
Yes. I would be kicked off the table at that one already.
Chris.
Not by me.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not. No, okay, Chris, wait, man.
Her legs aren't long enough. No, I think that the concern, obviously, the two committees have a different remit. One is whether or not there should be further consideration, which is the Petitions Committee, and Councillor Cave accurately, I think, represents the view of that particular committee, the decision that was made at that time. I think, yes, there is possibly an issue here. Looking at it, there's definitely a concentration of people are crossing the road between the build out and the A761. So, and I think there is a good opportunity here to look when we're doing other works in the area with the 20 mile per hour speed limit, and what we can do to encourage and to help people, pedestrians around town. There is a busy crossing, it is a very busy road. I think there's about 10,000 to 12,000 vehicles a day use the A761, and also a large amount of cross down Glenford Road. So we do need to look at what we can do here to try and encourage it. And it is about looking at how we actually do that, because we've got plans in the future for additional car parking remote from Lochwinnock Road possibly, and that will encourage more desired lines to and from the village centre. So I think it is looking at it in the whole. So yes, certainly I would be content to support my work colleague. And good friend.
And good thanks.
What do you call it, on this matter, because I think it's important that we do consider this a bit further.
Okay, can we agree that and ask officers to come back with a further report? Great. Okay. Thank you.
You'll get in trouble, Graham.
Yeah. Okay, item number 8 is the contract for Washington October 2022 to the 31st of March 2023. Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Regular report for the one cycle as noted. There's a relatively small number of contract awards as set out in the appendix. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Any questions, Eric? No, won't send the chat. Can I agree with recommendation? Agree. Thank you. Item 9 is the Greater Glasgow and Quay Joint Health Protection Plan. Martin, you can start.
Thank you, Convener. This is a plan joint between Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board and the 6 local authorities that make up the area. Plans required by the Public Health Scotland Act 2008. The plan is owned by NHS GGC, but is prepared jointly with the 6 local authorities. In terms of governance, the plan's approved by NHS GGC and the 6 local authorities. And the question has been raised, what would happen if the committee were to decide not to approve this plan? If that were the case, we would feed that to NHS GGC and come back to the committee with their response. So I'm happy to take any questions on the plan.
Okay, thanks, Martin. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Convener. The question I've got is really, I can understand why this is here at this committee, but there are probably bits of this report that extend out beyond the remit of this committee. I'm just wondering what right we've got to kind of approve those.
So,
Martin.
So through you, Convener, this is a health protection plan, and health protection is the lead agency in the Council for Health Protection is Environmental Health, which is part of public protection, which feeds into this committee. Yes, there are some figures that are maybe of kind of wider public health significance. You know, there's some data in there that has wider public health significance, but primarily this is a health protection matter. That's why it comes to this committee.
That's all I've got as well. So you agree with that, what, Mark?
Okay. When I was thinking it through, I'm kind of going that there's not really anybody else on the full council that this could go to cover the rest of it. And this is every day's a school day. This is me learning. I'm just wondering why it hasn't gone to sort of full council, just to kind of make sure that we've got the full coverage of it. Because again, there are still bits, and I get that there's not really anywhere, because it's a health and social care scrutiny panel we have now rather than a committee, then we don't necessarily make decisions. It's IGB, but the IGB is Health Board and Council, it's not fully council, you know. So I'm just wondering if full council was an option.
Stuart, I asked the question of you the last time, so you want to give Elizabeth the answer?
Through you, Convener. It is a cross-cutting theme. Mr McNabb's responsibility does lie with this committee. We believe it's the right committee. It has been discussed as to whether it should be full council or for this committee. In theory, it could go to either, but we felt as officers this was the best committee for it. Members are minded to support it at this occasion. We can obviously revisit this with colleagues in legal as to whether it is the right committee or a strong committee. But if members would rather continue for further consideration, we'll happily do it.
That's not my intention. Sorry, it's just I guess I'm trying to.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I suppose the important thing from my perspective would be that other professional officers within the council have had, I suppose, oversight of this particular plan and are content for this plan to come forward for approval with this committee.
Yeah. Martin, want to ask something?
So effectively this plan is drawn up by the Public Health Department and the Health Board in conjunction with the Environmental Health Departments from the 6 local authorities. We don't tend to share it any more widely than that, but there is no reason we can't do that in future. I suppose in terms of the actual governance and coming to this committee, previous plans have always come through this committee, but I'm happy with where it goes. It's not important, as long as it's actually seen and approved.
Don't know what Martin said there, but I want to agree on it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just, I'm happy to agree today. Obviously, I know because public protection should be agreed today, but actually, Martin, no offence, but it's actually one of the most exciting papers I've read in a while. You know, because there's really a lot of really rich health data in there. So even for an information only, I think it should be through the IGB, even if it is purely for information only. Because there is a lot of health data there that I found interesting just being a member of IGB, especially about the outbreaks of illnesses and what year. And that really made me pretty sad. I mean, I took a break from Coronation Street and decided to do this instead. So if it could be for information only, IGB, I think it might be useful for that group as well to see that data.
So,
Convener, recognising your own concerns and several other members' concerns, what points made, officers will reflect on this as to where the most appropriate location is for it to be considered in the future, as well as looking at where it should be shared as well.
Okay, very nice.
Okay.
Sorry, I fully understand why it's not going to the IGB for sign off, because that's not an Everglade Council body, it's a joint body between Everglade Council and Health Board. And so I completely get why the decision, the kind of sign off is here. I've made the query about the full council, and I've said that, but that's fair enough. But I take on board Lynn's point about it's useful information. It's information that the people who are interested in this world should be getting sight of.
yes.
Not sorry, it's a legacy, right?
Okay, committee recommendations? Yeah. Thank you. Item number 10 is the Food Service Plan and Food Standards Scotland Audit Report. Martin, you again?
So I'm not sure if you were struggling to hear me before. I'll do my best. If you can let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you. This is the Food Service Plan for 2023 and the Food Standards Scotland audit, which was done in August last year. The Food Service Plan for 2023 closes a requirement of the Food Standards Scotland audit, which was carried out in August 2022. I think members will want to be aware that, disappointingly, seems to be Food Standards Scotland policy to give amber ratings at best for audit, even for relatively minor procedural issues which have been previously accepted in audits or rated green in previous audits. You might want to be aware that no authorities, to our knowledge, have received a green rated audit in the last 18 months, and there have been a number of reds. So just to give you a bit of context there. This report effectively closes off the 2022 audit. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Martin. Any question for Martin? No? Committee recommendation? Okay. Item 11.12 are routine decisions and items for noting. Item 11 is a housing update from Martin.
So it's an update on a number of issues, including the local housing strategy, and members also been aware that there was an all-members briefing last week on the LHS, so I won't say any more on that. It's also an update on where we are with area-based schemes. Over £15 million of funding in Inverclyde have come to Inverclyde over the last 10 years, and we've been the third successful authority in terms of percentage spend above core allocation, and 15th overall in terms of overall spend, which, given the size of Inverclyde, is quite positive. For only certain types of property qualify for area-based schemes, tend to be non-traditional builds without cavity walls, and the programmes have to be in accordance with Scottish Government guidance. Finally, local house condition survey. Results of this, I suppose, were not unexpected, and this local house condition survey feeds into the final draft of the LHS. Members will note that there's been a high failure rate in terms of the tolerable standard, and that reflects, I think, a low take-up or compliance with the linked smoke and heat alarms in private houses. So overall, though, we haven't got any significant issues. Without the issue of the smoke and heat alarms, the low turbo standard rate would be very, very low. I think only about 3 properties. Members will obviously be aware that we haven't surveyed the properties in Clune Park for obvious reasons. We know well their condition, so they haven't been included in this. Finally, I suppose RSL stock for members to be aware is reported to the regulator for compliance with the Scottish Housing Quality Standard and Energy Efficiency Scotland. So this is purely for private sector houses. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions from Mark? Chris?
Thank you, Michael. I like how you always mention these are supposed to be items for noting. God love the trials.
It's okay. Before full council, so you're fine.
One thing stands out in this report. It's in Figure 4, page 177, the Port Glasgow number. I note what Mr. McNabb said with respect to the light smoke alarms, heat alarms, etc. But I was just wondering, is that the reason why these numbers are so low in Port Glasgow, or is another underlying cause that just jumps out? Europe is not much. Europe's obviously 54.1, again, is a little bit of an outlier, but just Port Glasgow 10.8%, with no disrepair. Just seems rather strange. It seems statistically significant, and I'm just wondering if there's any feedback of given that number.
So I think this is about, through you, convener, I think this is about disrepair rather than about the tolerable standard, because you'll see Greenock South West has very low disrepair, and there does seem to be some issues round about whether, I'm not sure if this is reflects former right to buy properties that are now in the private sector, or whether it also probably reflects some of the tenemental properties in Port Glasgow. But what I can do, we will have the full report of the local house condition survey. This is sort of highlights. We will have the full report in due course, and what I'll do is circulate that to all members at that point. And if necessary, we can hold a briefing on it at that stage, but we just thought it was worth just bringing the high level results to you at this point.
Okay. Okay. Any recommendations? Yeah. Okay, item 12 is the stopping up of road and footpath number 5 Arthur Street in Greenock.
Convener, nothing further to add to the report, other than the fact that a number of members have highlighted the impact on the cycle network, and I can confirm that as part of the planning complaints that was provided on this site, provision is made for cycling.
That's fine.
Thank you. I wasn't me that mentioned the cycle plan, just the GPS.
Jump and
I'll look at the planning so I knew what. But I was just wondering, is this maybe the wrong way around? Because obviously we've had the planning application. I'm just wondering, and now we're looking at stopping up the footpath. Obviously, we decided not to do that. The planning application wouldn't be able to occur. So I'm just wondering, is this how we should be doing it this way, or should there be an application to be first close the road and then planning application?
Legal. It's you've correctly identified it's a bit of chicken and egg, but if the stop numbers were going through before the planning application went through, you would potentially have lost the path and then not have the development and the condition that that path has to be reinstated. So you put the stop number through and the public loses its right to use that as a way. So I would say we've got them the right way around. I was about to say that.
Okay, can we agree recommendations? Okay, under new business for the property asset management report, the private section of the report. People would like to just keep the brightness to the public, but that's good. We can go outside for this report, please. And this is hope the thing for the interest.
Yeah, well, two items.